Hello and welcome to my fly tying channel. Today's fly is a fly that every serious lock-style fly fisherman requires in his fly box. It's a variation on Stuart McTears silver dabbler. The hook in the vise is a Camasan B175 size 10, although I do tie these flies in size 8s and 12s. The thread that I'm using is classic wax by Semperfly, and it's a 12-knot thread. And I'm starting this fly about 3mm away from the eye. And I'm coming down the hook shank in relatively touching turns, and I'm coming to a point of right at the end of the point, the hook point. And there I'm going to tie in my flat tinsel. And I'm coming to a point now, midway between the barb of the hook and the point. I'm going to wrap the tag on. I put a silver tag on all of my flies that I'm going to fish for migratory fish. I'm just going to snip that off now, and then I'm going to neaten up. And back I come. Okay, now I'm going to put the tail in. Now the tail is bronze mallard fibres, and I'm using the fibres from the top of the feather. They're a lot stiffer at the top of the feather, and they make excellent tail feathers or tail fibres. And I'm taking out probably about 5mm of fibre, and I'm folding those, folding them, and then I'm going to roll them between my finger and thumb, which separates them all. And for a dabbler, I like the length of the hook for the length of the tail, so I'm about there, and I'm going to pinch and loop that on. And when I come to that turn there, I'm going to pull it tight, and that splays the tails a little bit more. Just going to make sure everything's on top, which it is. Another couple of turns on, and I'm now going to put my rib in, and my rib is silver tinsel, silver wire, 0.2mm. And I'm going to take off my excess from my waist and cut it off at an angle, so I get a nice tapered in the end of the body. And I'm coming up the hook shank. Right, that hook has slipped slightly, so let's put that right. When we come back down, we're going to put some more of that flat tinsel in. That's also going to be used as a rib. right down to that point. Okay, now I'm going to use some Semper Seal, which is a seal fur substitute. I'm using that because we can no longer import seal's fur into the country. We're having to find substitutes. So I'm now going to dub that onto my thread. Now I want a thin layer of dubbing, not a thick layer of dubbing. And because I haven't used any wax, I can move that dubbing needle up and down the thread. And coming down the way. And it's fairly sparse. I'm not right bothered if you can see the tying thread through the dubbing. If you put too much dubbing on, you'll lose the flat rib. It just comes engulfed in the Semper Seal. And I'll tie it off there. Now I'm going to wind my rib on. Open turns. I want the gap between the tinsel to be the width of the tinsel. Oops. And then I can tie it off. And neaten everything up. Now the next material to go in is the body hackle. The body hackle is ginger cock. I'm going to grab that with my hackle pliers. Even though I could probably get away with not using the hackle pliers, I do actually prefer the hackle pliers as I get more control. And I want to put 2 full turns in there. And then I want to come down the body in about 3 turns. 1, 2, 3. And then I hold it in with the wire rib. And I'm going directly on top of the wide silver rib. Coming right through and then tying that off at the head. And then helicopter that waist off and we can cut that hackle off at the back. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to rough up and pick out the dubbing. Does nothing for the shape of the hackle, but it does everything to make that fly fishy. I'm going to pull all that hackle back now. And there we go. Now the next thing to do is to put the wing on. So what I'm doing now is my bronze mallard that I've got left, I'm taking the tip out for the tail. I'm going to take out two slips of about 12 millimeters in width. And I'm going to place one on top of the other. And I'm going to make sure that those ends are again all level. A little bit too much off in one slip. Take some fibres out, which we have done. Right, now the length of the wing needs to go 3/4 into the tail of the fly, which is there. Now I'm making sure I'm right over the top and in the middle of that wing slip, and I can do that by just pressing it on the eye, and it leaves a bump, and I can see that that bump's right in the middle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap those fibres around the hook shank, and I'm then going to spin this bobbin in an anti-clockwise manner. Now I'm right-handed, so that means that I'm going to create a loop which is going to run down my fingernail or my thumbnail. And I'm going to put two soft turns in. 1, 2. And when I've done that, I'm going to pull slowly while gripping that wing tightly. And I'm going to put another 3 turns on top. I'm going to look at my wing. And that looks good. Okay, now I'm going to put another 3 turns on top. And I'm going to lift all those fibres. And I'm going to put 3 turns underneath those fibres. And when I've done that, I can now snip. Not all off in one. I'm just taking a few off at a time. And then what I can do, there's just one stray cock-hackle fibre there, which I'm going to cut out. And then I'm coming right into the neck of that eye, and I'm coming back, neating everything off. Coming right into the neck of that eye. And I'm not going to build up a massive head. I don't like massive heads on flies. And then what I can do is I can just whip finish. Snip off. Can then put a drop of super glue onto my dubbing needle. And just dab it on. Now this is Loctite super glue and it's waterproof, and I don't need to put any more varnish on top. And there we have McTears silver dabbler, which is an absolutely first-rate fly for salmon, sea trout, brown trout, rainbow trout. Well, we've got the fly tied. How do we fish it? Well, if I'm fishing for salmon, sea trout, brown trout, rainbow trout, I always fish it on the point. And it's fry imitation, stickleback imitation for me. Maybe at mayfly time you'd take a few mayflies because it's got that sort of appearance. But the point for me, and I'd fish it as I would for any brown trout. I would fish it quickly, and if I were fishing for salmon, it would be fairly slowly. But yeah, it's a fantastic fly. I've caught fish to 12.5 pounds on that fly. I cannot rate it highly enough.